Rajyog. Om Namashri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Sachit Sukha Swarupaya Swami Netapaharine. We have been doing this last section, Kaivalya Pad, and previous talk we had mentioned Kaya view. How yogi who has really risen very high can create many bodies known as Kaya view. View means conglomeration, quite a few. And Kaya is body. So many bodies he creates so that his karmas can work out very quickly. Now, those of you who are interested in comparative study of our scriptures, I mean Indian scriptures, you might remember that Gita takes a different approach. Upanishads also take a different approach. Gita says that Jnanagni sarva karmani basmasat kurute yatha. When this Atma Gyan comes, knowledge of self dawns, then all your karmas, all your good and bad karmas, they are burnt down. Now, here in yoga also they will talk about Dagd Bij. If you get that knowledge, the seeds of karma which are remaining or which have remained back will become fruitless because they will be like fried seeds. They cannot germinate further. When you read the Upanishads, you get a feeling as if you can acquire the self-knowledge in one birth. Even when you read Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, you get this feeling that you can get it here and now. But yoga doesn't give you that license. That way, probably our yoga is much more realistic. Now, Gita being a work of synthesis, Gita describes self-knowledge in such a way as if you can have it right away. However, when you go through 7th chapter, there Lord Krishna is talking about how very few people get into it. And also how a person develops true bhakti, love for God, after many births of struggle. Now, I'm truly a very ordinary person to say which one is correct and which one is less correct. But personally, I believe this approach of Gita, that the words of the Upanishads, words of Gita, words of Yoga, words of Sri Ramakrishna, etc., these are meant for people who have really evolved. So if you feel that this can be achieved in this very life, it only means that you have spiritually evolved over births. Now you're ready for it. I'm a monk and my interaction with the society has been truly meager. Meager. And now that I'm a senior member, having crossed 60 and all, I do get a chance to talk to some people who have come to me, maybe through my books or through YouTube talks. When I listen to their world views, I really get appalled. People who have been born in India, people who are born Hindus, people who are supposed to have got some spiritual culture through family traditions, the way they talk about life, the way they are critical of the scriptures is terrible. Everyone thinks that he knows everything. At least, persons like me, we believe that these scriptures are the words of great sages. And so our understanding needs to be modeled according to these scriptures. But these people, the semi-learned ones, they think that whatever they're thinking, that is everything. If you try talking to them, either they won't listen to you or they will become quarrelsome. And then you realize that how many births they will require, how many births of suffering they will require. And this is where actually most religions fail. When you are talking about a growth after birth, after death, or after many of these births, people are no more interested. That is why religion is an extremely personal thing. Religion can never be for the masses, and my religion cannot be your religion. My path cannot be your path. Your understanding will be qualitatively different from my understanding. I know quite a few persons who have been listening to our talks, and they say that their worldview has been changing after listening to these talks. After all, these are not ordinary words, these are words of the masters. Here, Patanjali has been talking about creating many bodies to work out karma. And as we mentioned in Upanishads and Gita, you get a feeling as if you can get it now. They're not really contradictory. But yoga being the science of mukti, science of liberation, people may wonder, do we really need all this? Probably we need. Although I myself belong to the tradition of Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda, and naturally I'm supposed to believe and I'm supposed to talk that mukti here and now. That is the approach of Gita. But then that cannot be for everyone. It's just not possible. Sri Ramakrishna says that if you take a worm that actually belongs to cow dung and put it in a bowl of rice or in the pot of rice, it will just die. If you try talking to worldly people of these things, they will not be able to take. They won't take. Anyway, now that so many bodies have been created, now Patanjali is basically talking about the nature of mind and the importance of mind. Yoga is mostly about mind. Um, Normally, nowadays, when you hear about this yoga and yoga gurus, they're always talking about body. This asana, this breathing, that breathing. But actually, yoga philosophy doesn't pay much attention. In fact, very little attention to body and breathing. The body and breathing, these things are meant for people who are extremely attached to their body, for whom body consciousness is everything. Sometimes people ask me how I maintain this kind of health at this age, what kind of yoga I do, what exercise. I've never done any exercise in my life, neither physical exercise nor yoga exercise. And the only asana I know is how to sit during food Indian style. That's the only asana I know. Because ultimately, everything is here. This is what is important, nothing else matters. Starting from the first sutra where yoga begins, Patanjali has been focusing on mind, mind, mind. Mind is Maya. What is Maya? Mind is Maya. Maya means if it overpowers you, you become worldly. And if you overpower Maya, you get liberated. This is Maya. Those of you who have scholarly bent of mind, and those of you who might have studied Madhvacharya and Ramanujacharya, you'll find that these people keep on attacking Shankaracharya on the issue of Maya. What is the substratum of Maya? Where Maya stands? Where Maya actually exists? Well, Acharya Shankar was not there to answer, and his disciples are not at all good at answering. And that's why this quarrel has been going on forever. Mind is Maya. Finished. There is no other answer. When mind overpowers you, you are in the world. When you overpower the mind, you are liberated. Finished. Patanjali definitely did not know about Maya the way we understand Maya today. It doesn't use these terms, but he has been describing only that. He's discussing Maya, Maya, Maya in the form of mind. And then he says, Pravitti Vede Prayojikam Chittam Ekam Aneke Sham. Now, the activities of the different created minds are various. The one original mind is the controller of them all. Now, I presume that those of you who have been listening to this talk have listened to our earlier talks and you are genuinely interested in Raj Yoga as also in the science of mind, Indian science of mind. This is Indian psychology. Those of you who have some idea about what we have been discussing would be appalled at the shallowness of Western psychology and sheer shallowness of the understanding of mind by the Western minds. They're just too shallow, too childish. Just look at the level where Patanjali has taken it. Now, he is saying that supposing you become a great yogi and you want to work out your karma, because the karma will keep on pulling you repeatedly to different births, as he will explain further. So now there are quite a few bodies, and naturally there are quite a few minds. And they may start quarreling with each other. Those of you who have some friends, and nowadays with Facebook and WhatsApp, not many people have friends. But those of you who have friends, you will see that every now and then you have difference of opinion. The moment we talk about friendship, the Sanskrit term is bandhu. Bandhu comes from bandhan, that which binds. Friend is one where you two are bound together, the common cord. And there are differences. Now, what about these minds? These minds, they're linked together, but they're separate. Patanjali says very clearly that the original mind, that created all these minds, that mind is the master. So there will not be any confusion. He had probably anticipated questions by people who are not very serious about these things. They might have asked, there might be conflict. So Swamiji says that there is the original mind and there are made minds. And Swamiji keeps on talking about this idea repeatedly, not only in Raj Yoga, in most of his talks, that matter and mind are like two inexhaustible storehouses. In yoga philosophy itself is the soul and prakriti, nature. These are inexhaustible. But now from prakriti, Swamiji is not talking about matter and mind. Matter and mind both belong to prakriti. And prakriti being infinite, matter and mind are infinite. So it is simple. If you have an infinite storehouse, you can definitely create any number of bodies and you can create any number of minds because the storehouse is infinite. We feel that I'm limited in this body. I feel that I'm limited in this mind. But the body and mind has come from that particular storehouse, and that storehouse itself is infinite. And so when you become a yogi, you learn the secret of their control. That's the problem. We are not yogis. We also don't want to be yogis. And we keep complaining of our limitations. The moment you try to be a yogi, you find that so many obstacles come. I was talking to a friend and just forgetting who he was. And he was telling that earlier that person used to laugh at these problems of the obstacles in yoga. And now he realizes that the moment he goes forward, with the struggle in the field of yoga. Now comes this problem, then comes this problem, unexpectedly. It just won't let you move forward. It's not only laziness, it's as if all of Mother Nature comes to block your path. Says, Swamiji, it's amazing. Says it was yours all the time, but you had forgotten it. Your soul. You're the actual master of this storehouse, but you have forgotten it. As you start controlling your mind, chitta vritti nirodha, as we have been discussing in our previous talks, slowly that power comes back. I'm about to make the final leap. Before making that final leap, you need to clear the extra baggage. It's clearing the extra baggage. It's not for enjoyment. Ravana had 10 heads and 20 hands. That was for enjoyment. You will have 10 bodies, 20 bodies, not for enjoyment, but for shedding the extra baggage. Shed the extra baggage. How? You might remember that 5 kleshas were described in the first chapter: avidya, asmita, rag, dvesh, abhinivesh. In the previous talk, we had explained how at the asmita is the junction, the juncture of consciousness and matter. It is from this juncture that bodies are actually produced. Those of you who know something about Narmada would know this, that very beautiful Shivalinga are found in Narmada, in beds of Narmada. I had heard, but see, I'm very poor at abstraction. Whenever something abstract comes, that is equations and all, my mind cannot take. So I'm very practical types. If I see it, I don't forget. But if something abstract comes, my mind refuses to take. So I nearly forgotten. So for the first time when I went to Omkareshwar Ji, I'd gone to Indore, and from there I went to Omkareshwar. Then I was told that, okay, Shivalingam are found. And then surprising. There was one monk, and then he took out some Shivalinga. I still have one. I got one small Shivalinga. I love it. I was told that when this Narmada river, it falls because there are hills and hills. And because of those water pounding those rocks, sometimes small pebbles, they become like Shivalingam and are thrown up. And when water recedes, you can see those Shivalingam with special marks on the bed. They're not to be found as frequently. And now that dams have been built, one doesn't find so many Shivalingam. This is interesting. Here is the river bed, and the river falls, and Shivalingam are thrown up. Here is consciousness, Purush, and here is Prakriti. Purush meets with Prakriti, and body and mind are thrown up. So amazing. Nature is so amazing. Naturally, this is the reason why we don't want to get out of this world. So fascinating. So fascinating. So, once yogi has known this secret, can manufacture any number of bodies. Now, in one of, I think 2 talks earlier, we had mentioned how siddhis, the powers are attained through various means. Some through birth, some through chemical means, etc. Patanjali now fixes it and says, Tatra dhyanajam anashayam. Powers that you get through various means, they are inferior compared to the power that you get by controlling your mind. The importance of mind has started coming. Patanjali is very clear about it, and yoga is all about mind. If you are not in a complete control of your mind, Yoga is not made for you. Do you stay organized all the way? Do you stay tip top all the time? Do you keep your room and office space tip top all the time? Are you well organized? If not, you are not ready for yoga. Because yoga is all about mind. So, Patanjali says, among the various chittas, that which is attained by samadhi is desireless. It is desireless. And hence it is superior. Why? Because it leads to kaivalya. When you get siddhis, like you might have come across some people who from birth are prodigies, those who are geniuses, and they say, early ripe, early rot. Those who are child prodigies, they burn out very quickly. Early ripe, early rot. Early bloomers, I have worked in school for many years. Whenever I found someone who appeared to be prodigious, I was always skeptical of such boys. I knew that they will burn out, and they invariably burnt out. But parents, they just want to show off. They want to show off to their peer group how successful her child is. And they try to push ideas and push information. And without realizing that it's an unripe mind. And when that unripe mind takes that load, initially it appears grand, but it burns out. Patanjali says that the mind that has been controlled and mastered through dhyana, there's a pure mind, there's a desireless mind. And the siddhis that come through that, they are the greatest. Why? It will lead you to kaivalya, to freedom. So other siddhis, the qualities that you might have through birth. Now, supposing you take LSDs, you take drugs. You might have heard of sadhus taking ganja, marijuana. If you take that, you might have some feeling that you are having this vision, that vision. You may have some vision. You go to Gangotri and you'll find sadhus taking ganja and staying bare body. And we ordinary monks, we have to be wrapped in woolens. Visitors have respect for those sadhus because they are sitting bare bodied in sub-zero temperature. But can that mind lead you to freedom? No. Remember that freedom is the goal, nothing else. Everything else that you see around, whether it be knowledge of the world, whether it be power in the world, whatever it is secondary. The important thing is freedom. Freedom means knowledge. Knowledge means power. That knowledge is different. That power is different. Knowledge and power that we get in this world, they are born of bondage. Being born of bondage, they are not real power, not real knowledge. So because it leads to true freedom, the power that is born of, the mind that is born of samadhi, that is the best. That is desireless. Otherwise, what happens? Karma shukla krishnam yoginah tri vidham itaresham. Now, this mind of the yogi who has done dhyana, he is desireless. For others, for persons like us, we ordinary beings, whatever we do, it will be of three kinds: black, white, mixed. That is gray. That is good, bad, and mixture of both. Now, when we, nowadays you might have heard that Lots of things, lots of teachings are going on. Work is like this, work is like that. No, Patanjali is very clear. For a yogi who has mastered his mind through dhyana, he is not yet established in Kaivalya minded, he is not yet free, but he has reached the highest. Whatever he does, whatever he does, it is neither good nor bad. Neither it is white nor it is black. They are pure work. As for us, people like us, they are correct or they are wrong. They are good, they are bad. They are white, they are black. And in some cases, these are mixed. And because of that, when you have good, bad, and mixed, naturally they will produce good, bad, and mixed. And if you have good, bad, and mixed results coming to you, you will be born again and again. And depending on what kind of work you have performed, what results come to you. The species where you are born will be in accordance to that. Earlier we had mentioned how Patanjali says, Kshetrikvat, the way farmer lets out water just by cutting the bondage, the bandh, the stopper. Once that is removed, water flows on its own. When you are working, Patanjali says work are not directly related, but they act like breakers of barriers. So, Swami says when the yogi has attained perfection, his actions and the karma produced by those actions do not bind him. When you have reached that level, those will not bind you because he did not desire them. Let me give you a very simple example. When the heat is on, the summer heat, we strive for rains. In earlier days, people used to chant Ram Nam, perform special prayers. In the Veda period, they used to have yagya so that rains may come. Because their life depended on the rains. Yogi is not bothered about either this. If the rains come, well and good. If rains do not come, well and good. He is detached, completely detached. He is desireless. And because he is desireless, whatever work he does, the results of those work do not touch him. I encourage my friends and people whom I know to do some social service. Serve others. Normally, when you serve others, either you want some kind of recognition. People should say, oh, they are so nice people working for a common man. Or you think of getting some virtue, some punya, so that after death you may go to Swarga. But real service is when you care for neither. You see someone suffering, you do it and you move ahead. Finished. Yogis are like that. Actually, unless you have been into this habit of serving others all the time, you will not be able to understand or appreciate this. By nature, we are very selfish. If not selfish, we are self-centered. Very difficult for us to understand what it means to help others. Because whenever we whenever we favor someone, there's an anticipation of return favor. And that anticipation of return favor can be in any form. So Patanjali says that these great ones who have controlled their mind through dhyana, through meditation, they're not touched by whatever they do. Others, they get the results in the form of good, bad, or mixed birth. Tatas tad vipaka अनुगुणानाम eva abhivyakti vasananam. From the threefold works are manifested in each state only those desires which are fitting to that state alone. Now, there's a very interesting sutra, number 8. Sutra number 8 is very interesting because we can neither prove it nor we can disprove it, whatever is being discussed here. When it comes to ideas like rebirth and karma and heaven and mukti, we have to depend entirely on the scriptures. My words, your words, they do not count. Some people will speak in favor of it, some others will speak against it. No, these things have no meaning. Either you are a follower of a particular scripture or you are not. And if you are a follower of the scripture, you have to accept it fully. You cannot say that I'll take part of it and not another part of it. All these scriptures of Hindu religion will say that rebirth is a reality. And just now we saw how Patanjali is talking about creating so many bodies so that this karma can be worked out. But that is happening with us all the time. If you look at your life, just for a moment, just pause for a moment. Think of your own life, say, in last 2000 years, when Jesus was born. And supposing you believe in this rebirth theory. Now, when Jesus was born, go a little higher, look at your own life. Many lives, many bodies in last 2000 years. And if you squeeze those 2000 years time, you will see that you might have got maybe 20 bodies, 30 bodies, 40 bodies. What you did, say, in 2000 years, getting, say, 50 bodies, Yogi does it in 1 year, maybe. Now, if you stretch that time to 10,000 years, 20,000 years, same story continues. Now, you may not have been born as a human being. I keep coming across people who are vicious. I keep coming across people who are extremely obsessed with their bodies, with their family members, with their achievements, with their fame, and with their wealth. I often wonder what they might have been in the previous birth. And I also wonder what might happen to them in the next birth. When I think like that, I'm pretty dispassionate about it. When I was young, these were mere words for me, mere expressions. Now they're not. I know this is going to happen. Now, Patanjali says a very interesting thing here. What he says that, just think of the 50 bodies, say, in last 2000 years. Your mind now is a continuum. Those of you who are interested in the subject will find it extremely intriguing and very interesting. Your mind is a continuum. Your body is not. Because supposing, just to give you an example, supposing you were born in some other species, maybe as a cow, maybe as a dog. Now these things sound so terrible, but let's for a moment assume your sanskaras, your impressions. Whenever you do something, that work leaves an impression on the mind. Something like the example that we use. There's an ATM card. You go put the ATM card in the machine and take the money out. All the transactions are noted in the computers. After 5 years, if you go to the bank and say that, okay, fine, show me all my transactions, the computer will let out all the transactions. But for all practical purposes, you don't refer to the computer all the time. Your mind is like that hard disk. where no file can ever be deleted. If you delete those files, the trace remains. I asked some of my friends whether or not hard disks can be cleaned. Computer experts we have, they said, no, actually, they cannot be cleaned, really. The experts can always find it out. The only way is to break the disk. Break the disk. This mind has to die. Till this mind dies, files will keep popping up. Earlier, it was so difficult to understand whatever Patanjali has said. Now, with this computer thing, it's so easy to understand. Your hard disk never forgets a mistake that you made, a wrong entry that you made. It keeps a record of everything and it pops up at the right time. You ask for something and that pops up. Exactly like that. When you get the appropriate body, the impressions that were the work that you did, whatever you did, its impression has remained and it pops up in the right body to come and manifest itself. Now, supposing you have viciousness, let's say you have viciousness. Now you are born maybe as a god. Now, viciousness cannot be expressed. Gods cannot be vicious. It will wait. And supposing you get a lion body, your viciousness will come. And you might have seen, we have seen, even the cows, which are such a gentle animal, some of them are a bit violent, not much. And then you think that once it gets the right body, maybe of a dog or a tiger or a lion, what kind of viciousness it will have. So Patanjali says that your mind never forgets anything. All the impressions will remain. When it gets the right body, it will be manifested. See, supposing somebody has strong desire to eat meat and enjoy meat eating, the human body is not suited for that. For that, you need to be born maybe as a tiger, as a carnivore, or maybe as a vulture. You can go on eating meat as much as you like. All your desires will be fulfilled. Prakriti is so interesting. It has all kinds of body. It offers all kinds of body. Whatever kind of enjoyment you want, there's a body waiting for you. So, Swamiji explains beautifully. Suppose I die and become a god in heaven. The desires in a god body are not the same as the desires in a human body. We can't even understand what exactly their desires are. But we can understand what we see in a cat and in a dog. The desires are different from us. So these certain desires that the cats have, we cannot have. We may have those tendencies, and once we get a cat body, it will work out. So when you think you are good, don't think you are so good. You are good simply because you have a human body, and there are tendencies within you which cannot work out in this human body. Once you get the right body, those tendencies will come out. So only those desires will come out for which the environment is fitted. The rest will remain stored up. Unlike the idea of sin that is prevalent in Christianity, Patanjali is not trying to put the fear of God in our minds. He's just narrating plain truth. Well, it's like this. And he has been discussing and he has been explaining. Now, those of you who have been listening to this talk for the first time, you may find these things not very logical. You might think that as if these things are being imposed on us. But no, things are not being imposed. Things have been explained. This shows the power of environment is a great check to control even karma itself. Unless the environment comes, your karma will not work out. And that's why many talented people, extremely talented people, if they do not get good schools and good colleges, their talents cannot be manifested. So if you want to be spiritual, truly spiritual, you must be in the company of the holy man. If you're in the company of holy man or holy men, the spiritual tendencies that you have will manifest. There was this famous psychologist, Carl Jung. And Carl Jung was a disciple of Freud. But Carl Jung was not very happy with some of the theories of Freud. And then he came across a young girl. She was suffering mentally, and then Jung tried to understand her background and found that when she was a kid, she used to go to a church where there was a lot of singing and all, and she used to take part in all that. And when she grew up, her environment changed. She was not getting in somewhere, she was suffering mentally. And Carl Jung felt that probably if she joined some choir in a church, she will be all right. And he suggested that, and actually it worked. That changed the outlook of Carl Jung profoundly. And then he broke away from Freud, and he very famously wrote Modern Man in Search of a Soul. We understand so little of this world, or rather, so little of our existence. Whatever you want to be, try to be in the company of those kind of people. And that's why you will see that so called intellectuals, those who have studied books, they don't like to talk to spiritual persons. Once at one of those IIMs, I never visited that place, but I've heard that some monks used to be invited to deliver talks. And then a new director came and he saw one of those monks. He asked, "What is this Gerua doing here?" He said, "They come for talks." And that director clearly instructed, "Till I am the director, that means for 5 years, no Gerua in this campus." They have such aversion, these people, such aversion to monks and to spiritual beings, etc. They want to enjoy life. If they are educated, they want to enjoy life. Everything is meant for that. And then, Sutra number 9, Patanjali explains, Jati, Desh, Kal, Vyavahitanam api anantaryam smriti sanskarayo ekarupatvat. Continuity of mind. Continuity of mind is maintained through various species, various space, and time. There is a continuum in past, present, and future. Mind that I have today is practically the same mind that I had when I was a kid. Not only that, it's the same mind that I had 2000 years ago, 5000 years ago. Just that some more skills have been added to it, and impressions of some of my past actions have been added to it. When we say that we are evolving, it only means that we have been gathering more and more experiences. And Swamiji says that impressions revivified become memory. So experiences becoming fine become impressions. You have experiences. those experiences become impressions, just like a mark, invisible mark. And these impressions, when they are aroused again, they become memory. When you think of something past, what is happening? Or better still, think of pickle. While listening to our talk, just think of pickle, achar. You'll see that your tongue has started watering. There is no pickle. Why it's watering? It's an amazing thing. Pickle creates more water on the tongue than, say, sugar. So when we had pickle, it created such powerful impressions in our mind. And they remain there just like impressions. And here comes a word. And that impression arises just like real. Mind cannot distinguish between real and imagination and memory. So now it's memory. You had taken that pickle somewhere, and your whole body mind system goes into that mode. So it's very important what kind of work you do, what kind of experiences you allow to enter your body mind system. Because whatever you do will leave an impression. And once that impression is there, slightest suggestion, it will come back to you in full force, because Swamiji says, revivified. So you have acts, they create, that is karma, they create impressions, sanskar, they become memory. Memory haunts, and as you become old, as you start getting older, once you cross maybe 50, 55, you'll see that your body and your organs, they start becoming weak. That is, your control over them is not as much as it used to be earlier. And then your mind starts going back to those lanes and bylanes of memory. You start thinking of this, you start thinking of that. Sometimes you get upset, and sometimes you enjoy. They become a great hurdle. Many of you might have noted that when you are about to fall asleep, sometimes you suddenly remember something bad that you committed, or something bad that happened to you, or something that might have turned out to be extremely bad, but you were saved in the nick of the moment. And you see that you are jerked out of the sleep. Your mind, your entire body mind system gets into that mode. The mode in which you were when that happened. Memory is so powerful, and it's all because of the impressions that are there in the mind. And Patanjali says there is a consecutiveness, continuity in desires. Even though separated by species, space, and time, desires will continue to be there. Because mind is continuing, the desire continues. Irrespective of in what species you have been born, where you have been born, it will continue. So, as we mentioned in the previous sutra, the experiences of a dissimilar body are held in abeyance. So, unless you get the similar body, the experiences that were acquired through that body will not work out. So, for example, there is a female body and there is a male body. Now, supposing you were in your previous birth a female, and now supposing you are a male. So, some of the experiences will not work out, but it will wait till you get a female body, and vice versa. Animal body, God body, whatever body it was. So, each body acts as if it were a descendant of a series of body of that species only. So, mind is a continuum. But bodies, you have one mind, many series of bodies. Now again, let's have a thought experiment, which many of you may not like. Supposing you were a dog, maybe 5,000 years ago. So let's trace that time for our convenience. Perchance you become a dog. If you love your dog too much, and if you die thinking of your dog, well, you will be born in dog species. And because you have loved your dog, there is no harm in telling that you will be born as a dog. So no harm meant, no insult meant. Like if a person loves dog, what's the harm if that person becomes a dog? Nothing wrong with it. If a person loves his cow and in the next birth he becomes cow, because you become what you love. Experiences that you had as a dog body 5,000 years ago are now waiting. Once you are a dog, it will start working out. Now, if you look at life, like we were discussing 2,000 years ago, thinking of many bodies, actually, you will see that they are like branches. And each of this body is just like a descendant. So there was a dog, and now when you are born as a puppy, you are born not of your parents. You are born of your own body. Shocking. Many of you who have been listening to these talks will say that you don't have any similarity with the behavior of your parents. In fact, I can assure most of you won't have similarity. And many of you would find that your parents are not at all interested in scriptural matters. We have one student here in Sanskrit honors, and Suradip Bandyopadhyay, a nice boy. He listens to most of my talks. He might be listening even now. So I persuaded him. And he's young boy, is in third year of Sanskrit honors. And he listens to all my talks. So I told him that now that you are home, you can ask your parents, particularly your mom, to listen to some of these simpler talks like Ramayana and Mahabharata. And every time I tell him, he laughs and says, "Oh, mom is not interested. She is more interested in serials on Ramayana and Mahabharata." And I laugh that most time people complain that their children are not interested in religion. And here a child is complaining that his parents are not interested in religion. Now, how is it that his parents are not interested in listening to these talks and he's deep into it? We don't know. It only means that he's son of his parents, no doubt, but he's descendant of his previous body. Other than my own scriptures, Upanishads and all, my favorite book is the Bible. I love Bible, New Testament. I just love it. And when I had heard this statement by Lord Jesus, when somebody informed your mother and your sisters have come, said, "Who is my mother and who is my sister? He who walks in the path of God is my mother, my sister." Something like this. This is it. Poor mom of Jesus. Throughout her life, she must have thought that Jesus, Jesus is her son. Something similar happened when Lord Buddha visited Kapilavastu and his father sent his grandson, Rahul, asking for inheritance. Inheritance. Term is inheritance. Buddha asked one of his disciples to take a bowl and give it to Rahul. And he told his father, "You claim your descendants from the kings. I claim my descendants from these monks." I'm a monk not because my parents gave me this sanskar, but because my previous body gave me this sanskar. I am a true descendant of my own self. No one in this world, no one, mind it, in this world is a descendant of his family. Everyone is a descendant of his own self. And depending on in which species you are born, you will be a descendant of your own self. So essentially, you have too many working personalities. Personality as a dog, as a cat, as a cow, as a god, as a ghost, different species. And you will always be descendant of your own self, of no one else. Mind it, Patanjali is not imposing ideas on us. He is stating a fact. Facts that he must have learned from his masters, the facts that he himself had observed, and the facts that he worked out logically. It's very interesting. Tasam anaditvam chashisho nityatvat. Thirst for happiness being eternal, desires are without beginning. So naturally, question comes: where comes these desires? Every time we are talking about avidya, kama, karma, ignorance, desire, and action, acts. Desires are eternal. The moment there is ignorance, there are desires. Desires are eternal. So it's a vicious cycle. You forget your nature. You forget that you are pure Atman. Because you forget your true nature, you feel you're incomplete. You want completeness. Desire comes because you want to be complete. No one wants to die. Why? Because this, thirst for life. I want this life. It is eternal. Those of you who have listened to our talks from the beginning would remember the five kleshas: avidya, smita, raga, dvesh, and abhinivesh. It's clinging to life, your thirst for life. And because you have this clinging, this desire to live, of course, why else you would be in this Maya? Maya. Once I was, just a few days ago, I was working on a very serious problem. And that was, why is it that females of a particular species are very important for the male, or even for females, particularly human beings? At least we know that wherever there is a relation, husband, wife, or love, they're attached. People are willing to share things. People are willing to give away things. But when it comes to husband-wife relationship, they don't want to give up. Why? Initially, I thought it's because of desire. Avidya, asmita, and then comes a raga, attachment. Then I realized, but it cannot be attachment. Because people are attached to their wealth also, and they don't mind giving away their wealth. Then I know it's avinivesh. You feel that you will continue living. It's basic instinct built in beings. Beings means those who live, those who breathe. Prani. The term is prani. Wherever there is prana and kriya, wherever there is breathing. And what happens? Prani, that is beings. They believe that by having next of the generation, he will continue to live. So the female is extremely important. And that's why female is so important. Same with females. Female will continue to, a mother will continue to live through her children, and a father will continue to live through his children. So the wife is very important for husband, and husband is very important for wife. This is abhinivesh. This desire has been going on. So initially I thought that this idea of sex, as the Western psychology will say, no, it's not the idea of sex. It's the idea I want to live. Because if it had not been, if it had not been, then Buddha would not have given up his wife. Because Buddha moved away from avinivesh to mukti, freedom. Because till you are having this desire, you cannot aspire for freedom. To aspire for freedom means to get out of avinivesh. And says, हेतु फल आशय आलम्बने संगृहीतत्वात् एषाम अभावे तद अभाव. There are certain factors that link up all this. What are these? Avidya, then there is purushartha, the effort to make, and there is this mind, and there are objects. So the desire works out through these. What we will do is, our time is up. We will take this up in our next talk. Actually, it's a discussion of mind, this discussion on this topic, only mind. And next talk, different schools of thoughts will be brought up for discussion, particularly Buddhistic, and yoga will establish its own conviction on the mind. Thank you so much. Here we end. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu.